point to talk about learning and just our definition of learning. And we wanted to start with you, Sesh. What you think about learning as a professor and as what you thought about learning as a student and how that kind of changed once you got into teaching or later in your life. If you want to go off
Yeah,
that.
that's hard. It's interesting. I mean, so I forget that there's there's a verse from like old ancient Indian literature, and I'm probably mischaracterizing, but it said like, there are four parts to learning. So uh, I'm probably missing one, but it's something like it's one of them is luck, one of them is the student's effort, one of them is the teacher, and one of them just happens over time. And so I may be missing one of them in the first three, but to me, the fact that there's something that just happens over time. Sort of what this tells you is like learning is really a long-term process. And the problem with an undergraduate education is it's a small, short-term thing. So it's very hard to sort of understand learning. Even my own learning, when I was an undergrad, I was also in this phase of, okay, I take courses, I get grades, I had interests, I just kept doing stuff without a greater sense of like, where's this headed? What am I trying to learn? And I'd say it's only over the past 4 or 5 years, which has been, I graduated from my undergrad in 2003. So it's, think of it 10 years after that. So it's like almost 5 or 6 years after my PhD that now I have a better sense of, okay, these are the directions I want to learn. This is how I learn. This is what I want to do and things like that. One of the big aspects of learning that I feel, especially I think in the context of computer science and like math, which students miss is, well, I'd say there are two aspects. So one is there's a lot of building of a huge structure. So meaning that you learn some fundamentals, then you build on those fundamentals, then you build on those and build on those. And students break it down piecemeal as, okay, this is one course, this is another course, this is another course. So I finished this course and then the assumption is I know all of that, but you don't. You have to build on it continuously to be able to sort of internalize everything. So I think that process of internalization is something which students don't realize. And the second thing is like practice. I mean, it's like playing a musical instrument, right? I mean, you can go to the best teacher and they can tell you, these are the notes and this is how you play it. But you have to go home and every day you have to play those scales over and over and over again. And then you start internalizing it. So for example, with programming, I tell my students, if you're not coding 1 hour a day, then there's only so far that you're going to get. Like if you're doing math and if you're not solving problems every day, you're not going to be able to internalize enough of it that you can start building off and go on to the next thing. And I think like this is in learning, like, the process of internalizing is like one of the hardest things because it's not something that you can tell, do this and you will internalize it. So, so that has been, one aspect of learning that I've come to appreciate more and more, but this is again, something more from a pedagogical standpoint. This is less of my own learning because, I've sort of gone through that process. And for example, now I don't need to teach myself programming or I don't need to go further in programming. So not because I'm great at programming. It's just that I have reached a particular skill level that in my career, I don't need to go beyond for what I'm looking at. What I'm trying to grow is more on the mathematical side, where of course my learning keeps continuing, right? And that there I can see myself like the process of internalizing has taken so long. So for example, even a research paper that I've written 3 years ago, like I realized that I actually don't get it. I go back and I read it again. And now I start saying, oh, so that is what's going on, right? And that process keeps happening, even with things as simple as something like, I don't know, as recently, maybe with like eigenvectors or something that you learned as an undergrad. And, past 3-4 years, there's been a greater clarity of what actually all of that means. And I think that process just keeps continuing.